Yes, I am. Yeah.
They already did, yeah. That's right, that's right. Cause maybe she never got it. We already did.
Yeah, she was.
She didn't.
She said that was.
You're not canceling the party, are you?
What?
You're not canceling the party, are you?
Call the meeting to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First up will be Sean Kane, courtesy about the broadband plan.
Hi there. I hope you can all hear me.
Yes.
Great. We have two things now that we have secured the Pam as the person who is going to be the contact person for Stark County for the IEDC portion. We now have to pass two resolutions. One is the resolution for Okra accepting the plan as presented. And the second is the IEDC resolution. And I submitted both of those to Rachel, and I believe Marty has reviewed those as well. Did anyone have any questions? Have you had an opportunity to review those?
I do have questions. I understand the one that's regarding approving the broadband plan looks fine. The other one, it seems to me we already did that, to be blunt. I mean, it tracks the same language as we have the one we did in June. Maybe you never got a copy of that?
You know what? I don't know that I did get a copy of it.
Okay.
If we did, that's great. We don't need to worry about that one. We'll just go ahead and finalize the IEDC one.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't want to do it again because it was a little bit modified, just to fit Stark County, and I put it into our form. And Commissioners, I'm correct on that, right? We already did that?
I thought so.
Do we
That's all we need then. I just need a signed one.
I have to make sure. I think so.
Well, how about this? I'm sure we did,
Yeah, I'm so anxious.
but just on the off chance that maybe we did not, why don't we conditionally approve it in case we didn't before? I know that sounds ridiculous,
Okay.
but that way we won't have to come back.
It certainly
and
is
do
the
it a second
intent to
time.
have approved it, so yeah, in case there's some, that was in June that we did that. But you probably never got a copy of it, I suppose, but we're gonna go ahead and do that, right? You're gonna go ahead and just approve it
Perfect.
in case we don't have that in the record.
So there's a motion.
Yes.
Second. All those in favor? Aye.
So have we concluded with that grant then?
I need the IEDC one done as well
We just approved that one too. We approved both of them at the same time.
at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay. That's it. And then we will be submitting for closeout once IEDC gives us their blessing.
Wait a second, I don't see that it says that Oprah doesn't say anything about ID. I don't see anything here that says IDEC. It says Oprah. Did you hear me, Sean?
Yeah, it was submitted on that same email.
Yeah, there's two.
Yeah, but neither one of them say anything about IDECA. It's our
IEDC.
EDC. It says Oprah. Am I overlooking it?
I don't see it.
It would be, it's the one titled Resolutions Establishing Procedures in a Broadband Ready Community.
That was the one we approved last month, that we conditionally approved again.
Maybe actually this wasn't the one you meant to send, because that would explain, because the one that we did in, it was 2020 number 15, and it really does track the same basic language. It's maybe slightly different in a couple of places, but it's the same
We
thing.
didn't, the last month in June, we didn't have Pam named until June. So we couldn't have approved it because we didn't have Pam. Pam was named in June.
Right, that's right.
So we would have had to have this approved after we named Pam.
Do you have the copy of the resolutions that you sent us in front of you by any chance?
I do. I have, there's
Can
two
you
of them.
reference the section that refers to that entity? Maybe we're just missing it. I don't see it.
Yeah, the Okra resolution starts out as, it's the one that references specifically Taylor Seifert Williams Design Group.
Yes, right, got it. Mhm.
Okay. And then the other one talks
Oh, I
about,
see. Well, yeah. Should it reference the entity you talked about?
it will not reference Pam.
Okay,
It will not reference Taylor Seifert.
all right.
It's got the codes in it,
There's
the
no
IC
code-
codes.
There's no code section referenced in this ordinance, in this resolution.
Okay. It was sent to Rachel.
Well, we have two. We
21st.
have two. One tracks that one that Rachel just put up on the screen, and it's the same thing that was done in May. And the other one doesn't have any references to code section.
Yeah, it was sent to Rachel on July 21st.
I know, I saw it. I mean, it was forwarded to me too.
Yeah.
Can you find that and take a look at it yourself?
Yeah, that's, that's it. Because it's got the IC code in it. Did you just had it up?
That's that one that the codes are the ones that we cited in the.
Perfect. Perfect. That's the one I
That was
need then.
passed in May and June, but it doesn't refer. Okay.
That's the one I need. It's got the IC code in it right there. In the second paragraph.
8-1. Let me try to look at that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
5-28-285.
Let me look, make sure we get this all straight. 8-1-32.5-3. No, different one.
In the second paragraph, Marty, is where I'm looking.
8-1-32-5-3. Oh, 5-28. Right. Yeah, that's right. 5-28.
Yeah.
Dash 28.5. That's chapter. That's yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's cited in the one that we passed originally for reading in May.
Perfect. I need that one. And that's probably why you passed it in May and I was not on that call.
That's
I was
fine.
on the one in June.
Right. So can you see it now?
Yep, I see it now. Yep,
Okay.
you shared the screen.
That covers the correct material, right?
That is correct.
Okay, good. So we already got that. Now you're going to need the other one though, right?
Yes, correct.
And that's just an approval of the grant as being.
Correct.
I mean, that the project was actually done and we're satisfied with it, right?
Correct.
Okay. So that's all you need then is that one, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So does this close out that grant?
Yes, other than the closeout, which is signatures only.
Thank you.
Sign all this, right?
Just this one, right, Marty?
Yeah, just the one that starts out, the one that is local resolution approving the Stark County broadband plan.
This is, she just sent this for you to sign. So I did this.
Very good. Yeah.
Uh, Next up will be the Stark County Economic Development Foundation review with Thomas P. Miller and Associates.
And I think they're on the Zoom meeting.
Yes, Jack?
Hello. Yep, I'm
Oh,
here.
do you want them to go ahead and introduce themselves to everybody?
Yes, please.
You're up on our screen here, Jack, so everybody here can see you.
Great. So my name's Jack Woods. I'm with Thomas P. Miller and Associates. I'm a project consultant at TPMA. Do a lot of project management, and I also have Matt Roof on the line as well with us. He's our Director of Economic Development, and I'll give him a chance to introduce himself. You're on mute, Matt.
Muted, Matt, yeah. Sorry.
My apologies. Try to be quiet and then my moment to talk and I mute myself. Anyhow, Matt Roof with Director of Economic Development, Thomas P. Miller and Associates. We've been around, the firm has been around for about 30 years doing workforce development, economic development, and we work coast to coast. But our home turf is definitely the state of Indiana. And we're excited to work with you and have this opportunity to serve you. Thank you.
Could you, we have quite a few members in the audience, and actually the gentleman from Economic Development Foundation, the director, is here in the audience tonight, as is the secretary extraordinaire, also in the audience tonight, and the press is also here. Could you just briefly talk about what the scope of your work will be and the timeline for that?
Sure,
Just for the folks here in the audience.
Sure, I'll turn that over to Jack Woods, who's be the project manager for you. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. So in terms of scope of work, we are going to essentially be doing a review of the Stark County Economic Development Foundation. Basically review kind of what has been accomplished previously and how we can build off that and focus, goals for the future and kind of where efforts should be placed in terms of economic development in the county. So for our scope of work, we're really looking to do 4 things in a rather quick timeline. First, reviewing kind of existing conditions. So that's going back and looking at the previous plans that have been done, including Stellar Communities applications, and also sitting down with the Board of Commissioners and talking with them on kind of what they want outcomes to be from this process. So that'll be somewhat of an engaging task. Then we're going to do a deep dive into some data analysis, really doing an economic snapshot of existing conditions in the county. So one, looking at like socioeconomic and demographic trends, but also looking a little bit deeper on industry trends and understand where some of the county's strengths are. And hopefully we'll be able to build some strategies around that, really looking at or considering rural development and how the existing industry base can kind of complement some unique economic development strategies there. After that, we will sit down and do stakeholder interviews and a SWOT analysis. That stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So we'll talk with community leadership, community stakeholders, business leaders, really try to understand what the strengths in the county are, as well as some of the challenges and opportunities. And then we'll use that to inform the strategies that we're developing, and then come back together for our final task, phase 4, which will be basically a summary of those 3 previous tasks, bringing our findings together and presenting those to the Board of Commissioners and talking about kind of where we see the direction of economic development going for Stark County, and really trying to build off existing strengths. In terms of timeline, we're basically ready to get going right now. And I assume that we will be completed by mid to late September. So it's a fairly quick turnaround, and we're hoping to get going and look forward to working with you all. Are there any questions on that?
No, I read your proposal, and frankly, that was Larry, the director, you were his choice as well as our choice. So it's good that we all agreed on the same contractor. And I'm very pleased with the proposal. I'm happy with the contract and the description of the services. And I'm ready to make a motion to accept the contract as presented.
All those in favor?
Aye. We're ready. So you can call us anytime to get started. Larry?
Yep, that sounds good. I can start working on scheduling an official project launch tomorrow.
Thank you very much. We look
Thank
forward
you.
to getting started.
We're excited. Thank
And
you.
hopefully meeting you in person.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Next on the agenda is Travis. Mary.
Yeah, you can have it.
I don't think I want to stick around.
You have an extra copy, we can give one to Lisa too. Is there, when you guys want to give Lisa your copy? No, not that. Although I'm sure she might have. Here's one right here. Okay, you can have one of these.
Here, flag sheets. $1,095.62.
Here's our normal report. As you can see, the numbers are still about the same. The non-transports are up there also. So a lot of people are still a little bit skeptical about going to the hospital. I build like all the weekend. I have about 30 runs and probably about 10 of them were like different. So that's part of it. But as you can see, the transfers from the hospital are still up. Actually, they were a little higher than. So 33% of the portion of the runs we actually billed were from the hospital. The thing is, so on the next page is there's just the running total of like I always give you what's in the computer, and then the revenue is about 69,913.23. So it is down again another month, and as you can see, it's been a trend just like the economy. It's down since March. We're not doing as many runs. It's starting to pick up, as Travis said, but we've been very busy. I think we're probably down about $69,000 for the year, I think total. Because we were up March or January, February, and then as soon as everything started, it kind of went down because we're not getting the call line because people just aren't wanting to go to the hospital, and that's not a good thing either. So, but that's all I have. Does anybody have any questions?
No.
Thank you.
So my report, operations-wise, we continue to run smoothly. The 4 ambulances, 12 hours a day, 3 24-hour ambulances throughout our county. We continue to keep up to date with policies in regards to the COVID-19 pandemic. Personnel-wise, I've hired 2 additional part-time paramedics to assist with any open shifts on our schedule. We continue to keep overtime to a minimum throughout the pandemic, but I want to make sure we continue on that track by having those part-time employees on shift if we can. Training wise, we continue to train our staff on daily changes in regarding to protecting themselves against COVID-19. We held our monthly audit review with Stark Hospital and Dr. Maravich in person. We mainly spoke about summer-related emergencies that we've been having. We train on drowning victims and how their care differs from a standard cardiac arrest. We continue to provide monthly medical training for Washington Township Fire Department. I recently taught CPR to the Skill Center, local physical therapy facility. Again, I did Washington Township Fire Department last month. We will be doing a kind of a neat training this weekend. It's called TCCC, which is a tactical combat casualty course. This is a 2-day course. I think it's a 16-hour 2-day course. First day will be classroom session. Second day will be hands-on scenarios. So what to do if you're injured, let's say a mass casualty situation with an active shooter, anything like that. You're injured, how to take care of yourself, the patient, get yourself to safety along with that patient. So it'll be a really neat idea, or a really neat class for us to have. We're going to do that at the school actually here in Knox, I believe, is what they have set up. But we have 2 paramedics on staff with some military and police background that'll be teaching the class. Safety-wise, we had an injury-free month. Ambulance maintenance, the ambulances have been going in for routine maintenance. 0084, our 2012 used unit, just went in for some front end work, had a torn right front bushing, needed struts. They discovered where we've been leaking antifreeze the last week as well. They thought initially it was the cooler, and Charlie, Brian, I know you guys, Dave, with the mechanic. Today they called me today. They found there was the cooler portion was leaking, but now they also found the heater cooler part was leaking as well along the frame. So both of those parts are still on order. The truck remains out of service as of this meeting. We hope to have it back in the next couple of days. Base maintenance wise, we've been doing fairly well. Medic 5 did just have a hot water heater that went out. However, it was under warranty. It's a heater control valve, and it was repaired by a local plumber. So that's all I have for my report. Do you guys have any questions at all?
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, guys.
The initial one is, the most important thing right now is our MBH draws. There's good news and bad news about our July draw. The bad news is it was 18% down from the year before. Good news is June was 25%, so we're on a downward trend. It's a good thing. We expect that to continue because the traffic's now at about 97, 98% of normal. Right now we're 7% down for the year, 7.25, which is a loss of about $140,000, which we talked about last month, how we're dealing with that. The worst case scenario for the year, we think we're going to be at 15% down, which would be about $500,000 loss. We can still absorb that without significance. Anything more than that would be a problem. I think it's going to be closer to the 7% for all year round. That's going to be a loss of about $240,000. I don't think that's going to cut production. I think we've been able to use the grindings and things to make up for that. Those grindings are a godsend for us this year and have enabled us to absorb this loss. So hopefully this, don't think we'll have nearly as much of a loss last year, but just in case we cut the budget by $221,000 for next year. And that was approved by the council. Roadways, productivity remains good. We're now at about 55.7 miles of various types of road improvements. We're on cold mix asphalt right now. We're doing that today, plus culverts today. Look at the next page. That's the board that we show you every month. That shows the progress if you compare it to the month before. The main differences are the cold mix asphalt and the culverts. We've now done 14. We've worked on 5 with the surveyor. They do the work. We're paying for it. And we're also doing some of the finishing work on that. And we did the other 9 culverts. We have 8 more to go. And get more of the culverts in a minute. Next is the road improvement list. Those are all the roads we've improved and with the type of improvement. Most of the ones lately have been the cold mix asphalt. We don't get as many miles done with that per day, but that takes a little more time. When we're done with this first round of cold mix asphalt, we're going to start with chip seal. We're on track for about 90 miles. So we did 88 last year, so we're good to go with that. I'll mention a couple things we normally don't mention too much. Mowing and brush chopping. So I'm targeting for 4 passes this year for mowing and 2 in brush chopping. One thing we've done with increasing that, we're experiencing increased expectations from the public. We're doing the best we can to accommodate that, but we get a lot of phone calls. We did brush chopping, we finished 1 round in February and March, and now they're already calling us and the commissioners to do more of the second round already. And we're really not caught up to that yet. We normally get that done in the fall. We used to be just barely got 1 round done, but I kind of like the extra expectations. I don't mind that too much. Same thing with the mowing. Tree call-outs, I almost rarely talk about that, but we had one weekend this last month. We had 32 tree call-outs in a 24-hour period. I don't really tell you that much about what we do. I answer each phone call from dispatch, then I either go see it myself if it's nearby my house, or I call Dale Conley or Ralph Sane, and they do the same. So we kind of work together, and then they call out the people in those areas where the tree is done, and they go out with them and supervise that. I wanted to specifically mention Ralph and Crewley or Reed Barnett. Each one of them were on more than 15 trees in that 24-hour period. It was a busy day for them. They did a really good job, and they should be mentioned for that. And they didn't complain at all, and every day worked for them. Gravel road conversions, as you know, we got 2 applications for that. I'm holding off on that for one reason. It's because we, as you know, we use the Paisley ratings for our roadways. Paisley ratings have never rated gravel roads very well. Well, we were at a conference this last year where they talked about how they do that in Minnesota, and they have a different way of doing that. They use different criteria, the width of the road, the drainage adequacy of the road, and there's a pretty nice guide here if you want to look at it. There's a criteria of a couple other things they use, and we're scoring that now. Bob Lorenz is doing that. And after we get that done, we're going to redo our system a little bit. As you know, we've done a lot of grindings and reshaping the gravel roads this year. And that will continue with the new grading system. It's easy to do. You can do it in a couple days. And it seems to work well for other states that are using it, so we're going to start using that. It's a Paisley rating rated. Gravel roads, you can change it one day by grading it, but what you can't change is the width of the road immediately, the drainage, and a couple other things, and then how much stone you have on it. So those are the things you measure, because if you measure the smoothness of it, you can just go with the grader and change that in one day. You can't change those things in one day. All right, next, bridges, there's 3. The only 3 we have left are still in the process of being designed and getting money from NDOT. They take a lot longer when we go to NDOT. Those will be done in 2021 and 2022. Culverts, we just recently inspected all the culverts again, 625 culverts in the county. This is one example of the culvert inspection sheet. That's the information we get from this, the width, the condition of the culvert, what type of culvert, the latitude and longitude of the culvert, and all that. We do that for each one. We use a little GIS just to do that. Our inventory is getting more accurate. When we first did it a couple of years ago, it was about 80% accurate. We're about 95, 96% now. We do find discrepancies every once in a while, but mostly those are ones we couldn't examine before because they were underwater. During this last inspection, we found 8 more that need to be replaced and 100 that need to be cleaned out. And we'll be using the fire truck to do that. And those are the list of culverts on that page that we've already done. And the list of ones that the surveyor's office did, and we worked with them. We're going to make a couple more that way. We've been able to get more culverts done. Most of those that they've done are on legal ditches. The 2 intersections that we've been asked to look at, you'll also have to take a little more time. They're going to make recommendations to change both of these intersections. They're just not sure how much of a change they're going to want to recommend. So they're going to get a little more information from us. We went and gathered it for them. 700 East and 200 North has had 3 accidents in the last year. So that is going to pretty much mandate a change in that intersection. And 100 East and 500 South will probably be changed as well. And we should have those recommendations by the end of this month. So I was at the Courtesy Governing Board meeting the other day. We'll Zoomed it. And they mentioned, Edwin Buswell mentioned a transportation safety grant that was available for a county in the Courtesy area. I volunteered for that. LTAP has been mentioning those transportation safety plans. They're very important, and communities have used them. We pretty much have one in place, but we've never had the actual, pretty much a booklet that they can make for us. And we haven't had time to make that. We probably could do it, haven't had time to do it. We basically do a safety plan. As you guys know, I come up and tell you guys about that all the time. This will formalize that and it'll give us a grant so somebody else can write that for us. And we've been waiting there for a long time because we just don't have the time to do that. He said we can go ahead and we'll probably start going for that grant. US 30 Coalition. I am meeting with NDOT on Thursday to discuss potential intersection improvements at 23 and 30. I will update you on that after that meeting. And if one of you that would like to go with me, I'd be more than welcome to take you with me. There's also a US 30 Coalition meeting on Friday. We will see how I've talked to the mayor of Columbia City, who's the treasurer. of the coalition. I explained to him we will not be paying our dues for various reasons. And he said, we'll talk about that at the meeting on Friday. So we'll update you on that as well. All right. Next thing on the agenda is engine or compression release brakes or Jake brakes. In April this year, I received a request from Joanne Bailey from San Pierre to ban engine brakes on 421. Because that's a state road, I had to contact the state traffic, district state traffic manager. He sent me the attached letter right here that I sent you. This is the guidance for engine brakes for NDOT. It was done in 2010, but it's still valid today. That's what they're using. And they basically say that NDOT actually sees the benefit of engine brakes, so they do not put signs up. They say wear and tear on the trucks, and so NDOT does not put engine brake signs on state roads. That doesn't mean there's signs that can't go up. If the local community wants to, they can enforce or start a noise ordinance. To do that, there's a couple criteria you have to meet. You have to have a decibel level you want to hold it at, and you have to have a device that measures that level. So we would have to buy a device and put it out on 421 to do that. I'm neutral. I see the benefit of the brakes, but I also understand I don't live near an area that does that, so I don't know. It could be pretty bad, so I'll put a neutral on that. I'm leaving it up to you. Would you like me to pursue, see how much that equipment will cost? It goes through the process. That would really be your choice because that would be an ordinance. I'm neutral on this.
So that ordinance would cover probably the whole county then, wouldn't it?
That's a great question. You know, I mean,
It would be the non-incorporated areas.
yeah, well, I mean,
And that's-
you might be able to designate residential non-incorporated areas as being the place where, I mean, I don't know the answer to that, but it would make sense if you could make it, you know, applicable, or you might even be able to designate particular stretches of road in your ordinance, right?
Yes, you can do that.
So yeah, you could just identify where you think it's a problem and just have it there.
I think the town of Judson, they got theirs
They have-
ready and all that.
But you know, the municipalities can do it, but the unincorporated ones, you know.
It's my understanding that the state troopers don't enforce that on the state roads. That would only be local police and sheriff's offices that will do that. That's my understanding. I don't know. I would look more into this if you would like me to.
Because that would have to be posted and off the state or NDOT's right away.
Well, no, you can put, they put the sign you can put on there. It said noise ordinance enforced right there. Put that right on the state road. You ask for a permit to put it on the state road. That's part of this process. We could do that. If you vote the ordinance in, they pretty much approve that permit unless you do that. You can't put more than one sign. Let's see, no more than one noise ordinance sign will be permitted for each direction of a conventional state or U.S. highway. And the location should be within 500 feet of a boundary line for the local community.
That's the
That would have to be
problem
at
right there.
that would have to be at our county lines on 421.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was.
What do you see as
Well,
when they
I
say
mean,
local
you know,
community?
maybe, you know, it would be, I guess I'd want them, that's what they say, but I still think it makes sense that you should be able to designate particular stretches of road and, rather than, you know, boundaries. That's probably their kind of boilerplate answer, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily the only answer to it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, certainly it would make sense that if you were, you know, the city of Carmel, whatever, you could have that ordinance but, you know, I don't think that necessarily means you can't designate, for example, 421 through San Pierre might be a big issue. They get a lot of trucks, right? I don't know if there's anything on US 30 where they have to hit the brakes. Probably not really, right?
Really.
You know, so, I mean, but, you know, Hamlet might, well,
Because
other
that
towns,
between 10 and 35.
it's hard to think right offhand of another community that has a major truck route going through. Maybe you can think of 35. What is there?
Well, there have been some complaints at Bass Lake on State Road 10 or on the curves, but I haven't really had.
It would take a lot of trucks through that route. That would be horrible.
There are more trucks than you would think, but I don't know. I really haven't heard a noise problem there,
Yeah.
to be honest.
That'd be an example, though, or 23 through Coos Lake, but neither one of those probably get a lot of truck traffic. So I don't know. So maybe San Pierre is the main place that has this problem, really.
What I could do is I could inquire with NDOT, see where about sign placement on 421. I could look at the cost of a measuring device. And then come back at the next meeting and do those things.
Yeah, why don't we start there at least?
Yeah, if that's feasible, then I could look into the question of whether you could designate a particular stretch of road, which one would think you could. And then, there's no reason you would have to have that on, like, if you're out in the country, you're not gonna be hitting the brakes that often anyway, right?
Yep, that'll work.
So I'll do that. All right. All right, Sourcewell. It's a cooperating, you may have seen the emails, a cooperative purchasing agreement that the State Board of Accounts is essentially approved for counties and municipalities to use as a collective purchasing method. The one caveat to that is that you have to have a county or town lawyer sign off. What this is, Sourcewell is not a traditional cooperative purchasing agency. It's actually a government agency formed by the state of Minnesota. And it's designed, doesn't cost anything to the communities involved. It's designed to get the purchasing power of multiple communities, lowering the cost of contracted bids for bids that have gone out. I think it'd be a benefit to Stark County. We will use it. I do believe that the Indiana purchasing laws are similar to Minnesota's. We have actually benefited from it already by not even being a part of it. And I will tell you this, when I first started about 2013, we were buying most of our trucks from one company. We started bidding a little more aggressively. Truck prices went down. All of a sudden they started going up. And it's not hard to imagine that they may have been talking with each other a little bit. When they started going up, we then went outside to Ohio and got a bid from Ohio, and that was about $30,000 less than the bids we're getting here. And for a year or two after that, the bids started going down to that Ohio price. We're getting good prices again, but now they learned that Ohio company can't quite make the trucks the way we want the local ones to do. So they raised their prices again until this last time when I mentioned Sourcewell, and I knew what the Sourcewell quote was, and we saved the original quote we got for a tandem truck that we just got were $212,000. I mentioned Sourcewell, and they immediately sent me a quote of $189,000. So just by threatening to use that, we saved about $30,000, $25,000. And now they may learn that we are not necessarily totally signed on yet because we don't have the lawyer from the lawyer. Already looked at it. I think he sees that it's something we might want to do. We can still bid if we don't like the price. If we think we can get a lower price, we can still bid outside of that. So I think it gives us a starting point on the bidding process that we can use. If we go out and bid and they're all $20,000 more, let's use the Sourcewell price.
The one thing I want to point out, I mean, it's my understanding that to use it, you have to be using it as a designated purchasing agent, right? You are the designated purchasing agent for the highway department by virtue of an ordinance from 2004, I think it was. Yeah, 2004. So if other parts of the, do you know if there's any other designated purchasing agents in the county? Yeah, I don't know of any either. So if it turns out it's beneficial and it's in other departments want to use it, there will be the necessity, I think, of
There are
designating.
items on the Sourcewell list that other departments could absolutely use.
So you need another
It's not just
designated
limited to
purchasing agent.
transportation.
I don't know if you'd need one for every department, or if maybe all the sort of clerical departments could kind of go together and do that, or if that would work. I don't know.
I don't know. They can sign up because almost every county highway department is signed up for Sourcewell. And many other departments are too. Some sheriff's offices are, and some others too.
I think if there's a plus for other departments to use it, I think they should be able to see it to make sure that it can be utilized before we go passing anything, I believe. I don't know.
For the other departments or for
For the other departments to use it, so I want to make sure that if there's anything they can use, I feel better that there'd be more departments using it if that's how it would be.
Well, I'm familiar with cooperative purchasing agreements because we had those when I worked at the hospital. But this is a little bit different than the way they were structured there. And there's almost like no risk or whatever to use it. So it's a little bit different than I'm used to. You usually have to sign a contract with them, and then you can't get purchased outside that. But only under select circumstances, but since this allows you to either use them or not, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't.
That we are just about to order our dump trucks for next year, and if we go with quotes that I've got, more than $20,000 more for not using the source code for each truck.
So there isn't nothing more local besides this in Minnesota, that's where that kind of.
There's 2 states, Minnesota and I think Ohio or Louisiana. This is a national thing like this. Indiana has its own purchasing thing that we do the salt and some other things from, but there's a limited amount of items and we don't have the dump trucks and other things on there.
I don't see any reason why you couldn't use that if you wanted to.
Charlie, as long as everybody else can use it too. That's
Yeah.
possibility.
Yeah.
I kind of would like to see, do they have like a list that show, or is there like a list or something?
List of what?
Like what the other, like, or other departments, if they come up with something that they would need that they.
Yeah, there's a list of goods that are, there's thousands of things that are for sale on this. And I'm sure these guys can do it because other entities in the state have different departments on there.
You just, I just want to be sure I'm clear on it. They just have to be designated as a purchasing agent under the statute because that's sort of the workaround. You see that otherwise you have to go through the big procedures that this purchasing agent statute allows to, alternate approaches where it has a significant savings. So you always want to be able to show you're getting a significant savings.
So if you wrote the opinion letter, that it would not be violate anything that we've got. We already have Rick as a purchasing agent by ordinance from 2004. We could approve it for the highway department and then other departments tonight, and then other departments that want to, could take a look at it and wanted to use it, then they would have to come and we'd have to do an ordinance for who the purchasing agent is going to be for in general, whatever.
That's right. That's right. But I was just suggesting that if you wanted to do it for a bunch of departments that were sort of clerical or whatever, there's no rule that says you couldn't have one person be the purchasing agent for like, a bunch of different departments.
Well,
I'm not saying you should.
Auditor,
I'm not saying you should, but I'm just saying you could.
If
So you
that
don't
was
need to have like
to happen,
9 purchasing
yes.
agents because
yes.
I think something maybe to avoid it just in terms of tracking everything is
Except
having a
maybe
whole
the
bunch of,
sheriff's department, they would probably be someone there would
No
probably.
cost to the county.
No cost to the county, no obligation and no liability.
So if we want to go somewhere else and buy it.
Absolutely go somewhere else, yes. Okay, right now, these are $20,000 cheaper than the quotes we're getting for the dump trucks.
So where's those trucks coming from?
We are still coming from the state, we buy them local.
Yeah.
They just use the Sourcewell price. Same truck, same company, we just pay $20,000 less.
Well, there's a good reason right there to approve it. I'm okay with that if you guys are.
Well, for saving that kind of money, but I just want to look at the other departments, if they can use it, better do it, so, if they can get a better price on something, even if it's something little, so.
I agree with that, yeah. We could do that separately though, we don't have to take a look at that and
I'll send in the information. We'll send it to Rachel, so she can disseminate it.
So then, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Anything else? We're moving forward on kayak launches. There's a $5,000 donation to develop those, and we're going to use that in the feasibility study because when we went to go use that, we found that there's problems with locations. We're going to have them take a look at the locations and how feasible it is to put kayak launches in the county and improve the park system. This will be all used on that donated money, and then we'll probably towards the county in the end.
For the feasibility study.
For the feasibility study, yes. We may need money to go forward with the kayak launches.
All right, that's it. Thanks, Rick. We removed the driveway permit issue that was on the agenda for tonight. Any discussion about that right now? Prosecutor Baker. You're up.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, now we can.
Okay. So earlier today, I emailed you all the updated job description for the diversion officer that included the language we all thought was appropriate concerning the compensation and how the position was funded. So I just am asking that you all approve that with that updated language.
Well, I couldn't open your attachments on my Apple devices, so
Okay.
you'll have to state that.
Okay, I can read, this is what I added to the description. The salary of the pretrial diversion officer is funded exclusively through grant funding that has been awarded to Stark County. If the grant funding is no longer available to Stark County, such will impact the compensation of the position. I thought that summarized what was said at the meeting based upon the minutes.
I think that's pretty accurate, yes. Well, so when did you want this to start? After the grant is received?
The grant has already been received. This was a grant that was awarded, I believe, last November. Part of the money was funding a position at the Sheriff's Department, and the other half was reserved for when I found somebody to take the diversion officer. So the position has already been created. This actually came about, I believe, in the June meeting when I asked to make some changes to what the rate of pay was. And this was discussed because it's grant funding that it may not always be there. And so we wanted to make sure the person applying for the job was on notice with regard to the job description. So the only thing that has to happen is you all just have to approve the position with that additional language.
And the grant covers the salary and benefits, everything.
So there are no benefits because it's a part-time position. So there are no benefits, but the grant does fund, obviously, the rate of pay and taxes and all that good stuff.
Well, I think that is what we're talking about, as long as it was covered by the grant. And then I think the council has to include it in their salary ordinance, from what I understood from Marty. Is that correct, Marty?
Mm-hmm.
Motion to approve that. Maybe a motion. Second.
All right, I'll second it.
All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you. And then the other thing I wanted to bring, and I guess ask you all's blessing for, your blessing for, is that my office is in the process of applying for additional grant funding for our Victims Advocate. We are applying for the 2020 Stop Violence Against Women Act for Law Enforcement. It's a grant program that we would like to use to enhance the Victims Advocate program by way of salary. And the biggest change to the advocacy program would be that our victim advocate would go on and become on call. She would be on call all of the time. She would be contacted by law enforcement when we have domestic violence crimes, crimes such as rapes or other sexual assault, domestic crimes, crimes where we typically see issues with victims recanting. The idea behind our research and what we put in our grant was that if we can have face-to-face contact with our victims from the onset of the offense, we believe that we will see less recanting, and we will be able to get our victims connected with services faster. And because we are a rural area, we are limited in that regard. So being able to get my victim advocate having face-to-face contact with people, within maybe 24 to even 12 hours to 24 hours when an offense happens, I believe is very important. And that's going to be the idea behind the grant. This would mean that our victim advocate, in the sense of a sexual assault, she would be with the victim when they were doing the sexual assault examination. She would be meeting with victims as events happen, as opposed to waiting. The nature of the program right now limits our victim advocate, because if we have situations where, we get a police report and the case isn't filed, we don't typically have contact with that victim until well beyond the offense. The idea behind this is not only to provide that initial face-to-face contact, but for her to be available for interviews after hours. Basically, the position would be beyond the hours of 8 to 4. And so we would like to apply for a grant. We'd like to apply for this grant. We believe that this will definitely help our program and improve our program. And the grant, if it is something we receive, the county would match at 25%.
I don't know about that. What is the amount of money?
If it's boiling, turn it on low and just keep it stirred.
That's what I tell my kids too.
The amount of money that we are requesting is $25,000. It would include obviously an additional amount for salary, as well as Social Security and all that stuff. We would include $2,500 for mileage, because she would be traveling more, going to the sexual assault examinations, possibly doing forensic interviews if you have issues with cases with children. And so we wanted to account for some of that. And then we would also be requesting an amount of money for her to have an on-call cell phone in her own service plan. I would prefer for her to not have to use her personal cell phone. I just think it's a little bit better. And so so the total amount of money we would request would be $25,000, and that's kind of how we broke it up.
I don't feel prepared to approve that today, the $25,000. And here's the reason. Not that I don't think it's a good idea, because I think it probably is. I think it's wonderful. But at the last council meeting, when we had the all-day budget hearings, there was discussion about doing hiring freezes. The idea behind that was in 2021, we're going to have less money because of this COVID thing. And these budgets are so slim right now, the only way to carve more out of them is to start laying people off. So I feel very reluctant to agree to fund a grant position for an additional $25,000. And the possibility exists that we would have to cut salaries or staff next year when our funding is reduced.
I'd have to agree with you. I think it's a great idea.
I do too.
Right now, I don't see how we can actually do it. I mean,
next year is going to be different.
It's going to be very difficult next year. So
I know it would be a good thing.
I guess my thought behind applying for this grant and why I really like to do it is, if we can receive it, then I feel like we're more in line to receive it in years after, and it's more money being brought into the county in the form of a grant. Like, we have been told that some of these ICJI grants are going to start drying up, but we've also been told that there's lots of grant money to give. And so I don't know what the right answer is, and who knows if we're even going to get this funding. So I'm just asking for your blessing to apply for it and see what happens.
my feeling would be that we can't give that blessing at this time, because the only thing we can do is look at what's on the table right now. And I don't think it's in the stars for an additional $25,000 for salaries right now. That's my opinion. And it sounds like my fellow commissioners agree with me on that.
It's just not the right time.
And I don't think that would prohibit you from applying for that grant in the future, should the financial circumstances change. Because again, I think what I'm getting here, listening to my fellow commissioners, is that we think it's a really wonderful idea. We just don't feel that we can afford it right now.
Okay.
Sorry. I mean, I'm very sorry about that.
No, I understand. It was just definitely an opportunity that we didn't want to pass up.
They'd be right on it if something happened where like, take a couple weeks, but if we don't have the money, we don't have the money. You're a councilman, what do you think?
No new spending in 21 and 22. I'll just say of any kind. But the good thing is, just so the media has that in there, we do have a victims advocate currently. This will be just additional pay for that person to work outside of the scope of their current. I mean, we have a lot of office holders that have been bringing things like this and other departments too, to try to get increases in pay and other things to broaden the work that they do in other departments too. And it's just not good timing. I see a lot of value from the council side. I see a lot of value also. It's just in terms of funding it, it's not going to be there.
I'd say we're pretty sorry. Is I guess all we can say is we just can't do it at this time.
But if I could just interject one thing though, if there's some way, if she could possibly come back to you maybe next month with some other part of her budget where it's going to come from her own money, I don't know the 25%. I mean,
25,000.
well, it'd be 25% of 25,000.
25,000 out of her budget to apply towards that, I would think.
Is it
But
25,000?
You're welcome to try
Or
25,000.
25%?
The county match is about $6,500.
Oh,
62.
oh,
Well, 62 would be 62.
So yeah, so let me go back and rephrase that. We are applying for $25,000 total, but the county match is like $6,500, and I rounded up when we did the math. So we're not talking about trying to find an extra, quarter of a, $25,000. It's $6,000. So
Well,
if that change.
I would agree with Dave, if you could go through your budget and find 6,200 that you think you could pay for the 25% match out of your potentially approved budget for next year, we might be able to consider that.
I don't believe that will be a problem. When I did my budget,
you added it?
I didn't see any.
There are things that I could change. I mean, I overestimated on some of things because that's what I did. But I'm sure that if I move some things around, we might be able to make that work.
My only question to that would be, why couldn't we reduce the budget then by 62? I mean, if everybody starts being able to do those kind of things, but I would say take this offline with Rachel, would just be my recommendation, then come back to the commission.
Well, I have a question about it. Maybe I'm just not understanding. How does this deal with the potential for overtime liability? It seems like this person would be subject to they would be.
Well, I'm assuming that this 25,000 would be used to pay their overtime.
Right. So they're just going to work within the budget. I mean, is that the idea?
Less?
Can you just repeat that, Marty? I'm sorry.
Sorry. I'm thinking about with the schedule. In the schedule, it sounds like the way it ought to be done is that person's available. But I'm thinking that they're still going to be non-exempt employee, and so there's going to be overtime, sort of an unpredictable amount of overtime involved. And I was just wondering what the way that's going to be managed.
The way we talked about it is she would work a normal 35-hour week, but we would make adjustments to her schedule given when she's called out. Not always is she going to be, she's going to be on call, but it's not going to be that she's going to be out dealing with a victim involved situation every night or every day. So we would work together to kind of make sure her hours work out, what they're supposed to work, how they're supposed to work out. And we would just adjust her duties in the office accordingly.
So basically, she'd still be working the 35 hours because you adjust her time, but you give her $25,000 raise.
Correct.
I don't know about that either.
Yeah,
I don't know that she'd be necessarily a 35-hour week employee. There probably would be some element of overtime, but we were just looking at being able to add the services and the time restraints involved with what those additional services are. There would be an element of like some counseling, not some counseling, but some emotional support. And just the way I envisioned it wasn't necessarily that I was looking at it as overtime, but an increase in her duties in terms of what she would be expected to do. And so if there needs to be something creative done about hours versus, you know, non-exempt versus exempt versus, you know, how we treat that additional time, whether it's overtime or she can just continue to operate as a 35-hour-a-week employee, then I feel like those are things that I can get with Marty about to work on those things.
I wouldn't be in favor of someone that's only going to work 35 hours a week for the most part. Whether they, and if they get called in at night, then they don't come in late the next morning or something to work out for the most part their 35 hours and give them a $25,000 raise. That just isn't right. So I don't care. I mean, they're still doing victims advocate work, whether they meet them in the emergency room in the middle of the night in a rape case or what.
Well, I think it's a little bit different of a scenario when you're on call 24 hours a day versus when you're just in the office from 8 to 4. There is definitely a different set of expectations. And honestly, she probably will work more than 35 hours a week. The idea with this wasn't necessarily to treat it as overtime. It was just an increase in her salary because of the increased expectation in duties and the additional duties. But from the standpoint of, you know, how we look at the situation, if it has to be, if those additional hours have to be treated as overtime instead of just a change in her salary, that's fine. We could word it like that as well.
Well, let me tell you, I'm familiar with being on call. I worked as a nurse for many years with a lot of call time. So I understand what those expectations are when you're on call. And I didn't get no $25,000 a year raise for it. So all I can tell you is I would not be very much in favor of that the way you're describing it right now. But you could go ahead and talk with Rachel and see if you can carve that out. That'll give us another 2 weeks. So maybe I can open up the documents that you sent on somebody else's computer and see what they say. But right now, that's my feeling on the matter. And I'm not saying those things aren't important. I know the Ruth Matsey's group, they used to send somebody down to domestic violence. They used to have there was a volunteer service. They would go and meet somebody in the, they were trained for that. They would meet a rape victim in need, which doesn't happen that often, thank the Lord. But they were specially trained for that, and they volunteered, and they did go in the middle of the night to be with that victim. So I don't know if there's still some volunteer services that do that or not.
I don't know if there are, and I didn't send a copy of the grant application, but I did we received a letter of support from the director of the local executive director for CADA, and she's very much in support of this. And it's not just necessarily for violent crime in terms of rape and any other sexual assault. We have a lot of victims of domestic violence that I believe would definitely benefit from this. We see recanting witnesses all the time that I think they just need that additional emotional support to help them through things initially when they're making statements to the police. And so I think that we estimated that this would potentially impact 120 people annually, which may not seem like a lot. But when you're talking about domestic violence cases and how many people that impacts from, you know, family members to children, I think that this could be something that's potentially very good for us to have. And my victim advocate, she has worked with child victims, adult victims. She's been worked for DCS. She has, you know, been in advocacy centers before. She's advocated for victims of domestic violence. So she knows what she's doing in terms of this. And so that's why I think that she'd be so good at putting together this on-call element and being available 24 hours a day to work with law enforcement as an additional kind of resource for our victims.
I don't disagree with any of that. I mean, of course, you know my history, and I don't disagree with any of that. I think it's good. I just disagree with giving somebody $25,000 a year extra to be available to meet a victim after hours. But I guess you're welcome to come back to the next meeting if you have extra money in your budget to show where that 6,500 or whatever it is might be found, and you can talk to to the others and see how they feel about that.
All right, well, is that it, Leslie? then?
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the vendor claims, the amount of $994,899.46?
Oh, so moved.
All in favor?
Ooh, big claims here, so.
We paid for the hot mix, the big one.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's $800,000.
Yeah, the 800,000.
That was 50,000. Ain't that paid most of it?
Yeah, it is great.
Is there a motion to approve the payroll claims in the amount of $265,014.61?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from July 6th and July 20th?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
This is for the low.
Do you want to talk about it?
Yes.
Yes, please.
So the CARES Act, one portion of the CARES Act provides federal grant money to the states. The states then distributes a portion of that grant money to each county or each unit, each incorporated area based on population. Stark County has been allotted $744,000. We have to spend until December 31st. It would cover PPE gear for our employees, any sanitizing anything that we need for sanitizing, any kind of technology upgrade that we would possibly need, as long as it relates to our ease of communication online. And it also allows for meal deliveries to senior citizens. So we get to continue that program. I am asking on my side to add Lao tax info. So these are the counties right now that have Lao tax info. I have people in my office, researchers, attorneys, taxpayers, to come find dates, how much on their tax bill, what kind of deductions they have, previous owners' information, just anything about a property you could possibly imagine. Lao Tax Info is a site that you can go to. We'll pull up something in Allen County, Richard. So you would go to this web, the website would be designed for Stark County. You would go to the website, pull up the name or an address, find your property that you want to look at, and then this basically tells you anything and everything you want to know about that property except for the actual deed record. You can pay your tax bill online, the history of it, what kind of deductions you have, the tax amounts. I mean, anything that you want to know about your property. Searchers can use this, less traffic in the office. Public can use this. They don't want to go out, especially with the pandemic going on. So the CARES Act will pay for this. So I'm told by other county auditors because they've had it done. So the setup plus a 1-year fee is $27,000. And every year after is $10,000. Let's just say let's say we submit this claim and the CARES Act doesn't pay for it. Actually have $100,000 in training hours with Lao that we can still get it, and the county pays absolutely nothing for this, for the setup and for the next 7 years of contract expenses. So that's what I want.
And this be paid for by the CARES money, which is, how much did you say we got?
The initial startup, total?
Yeah.
$744,000. Initial startup for this is about $27,000. The remaining $10,000 every year can be paid out of our training money for Lao. So we have enough training money to pay for this website for 10 years, although I'm sure it'll be updated.
Okay, so, because it includes the 2020 and 2021 maintenance.
Yes.
But you're saying that we have enough money in the training fund for Lowe, specifically for Lowe, that they provide as part of their contractual service, where we can pay that for the next 10 years.
Yes.
I think that'd be wonderful for people to be able to bring that up, and if it is covered under the federal CARES money, then I think we should go for it.
Charlie, when this came up, well, when I went to the state meeting, that's where we started talking about the CARES Act, and they talked about attorney fees, and there was a short list of things they were doing. But these types of enabling, resources were the main things they were doing, because people are stuck at home and they're not going into the office. Anything that can keep people from having to travel into an office were the things that they were, paying for.
And we have an actual here. I mean, we created a CARES Act committee, so we'll be meeting Monday and we'll talk about what other departments need. But I want to stress to just our county in general and other departments is, if you need any technology upgrades, I mean, I even want to upgrade this. This is very, very outdated, and we use it. And we could really have something much better. We need to do any kind of, especially technology upgrades now and use this money for that rather than dipping into our Cume Cap funds.
This is something that we don't use in the.
If we don't get it. So I say we use $744,000.
Kind of similar to like the GIS and all that, or?
It, so it is, but it has a lot more information and it's a lot easier for the public to use. And GIS is a little different.
I think GIS is more visual, this is more interactive, so you can actually do stuff with your property.
So one thing I want to ask is like, can you do title searches that way, or do
Oh,
you
yeah.
still have to, title searches can be done so they don't have to come into the
Yeah, you can do,
offices and?
the only thing that they would need along with this, with your title searching, is this does not provide you a copy of the deed. And it'll give you all the transfer dates, all the previous owners, you just can't get an actual copy of the deed. And actually, they're upgrading this as well next year. Next year, the public, any taxpayer will actually be able to go on this website and file their deductions. They won't even have to come in our office anymore.
But they still can.
Oh,
because
yeah,
A lot
they
of
still
people are
can.
not very computer savvy and they
Yeah,
would not be able to do that, so. Well, I see this as a wonderful thing, a wonderful tool. And something that, we paid for through that CARES grant, so.
It won't show, I don't think it'll show if the survey was done, but it will show your ditch taxes and any other kind of assessments, like your environmental management fee that's charged, what ditch you're being charged for, stuff like that.
I'm okay, I'll make a motion to approve the, contractor, the quote, as presented.
All those in favor?
Charlie?
Yes.
Could I just say one more thing too about the CARES Act, and kind of goes along with something Kathy just touched on for a second. I think that we, between now and the end of the year too, we just need to look at our spending and see how many other things we can utilize those funds with too. Like I said, when I was at the state meeting, and the governor's office is even, pushing that really hard too, to utilize that money because it's there. But like I said, attorney fees, other things that help the public, get more access to government and things like that. But a lot of it is money that we've already spent, that we can look at and
We
say,
can
hey,
get
this was,
reimbursed.
this was COVID related.
Already doing that.
Perfect,
Already got a big
perfect. I think
pile of
that's
it.
wonderful, yes. And overtime, if there's, some of the overtime in that.
That actually, so overtime and any personnel time, that's going through J and FEMA. So we're gonna use this for, and that's how I guess a lot of the counties are doing it. They're using this for material items, upgrades, but they're using FEMA for the personnel.
Well, I really agree with that technology, because that's expensive to get all that done, and all too often we tend to lag behind a little bit because we don't have the money that some of the bigger counties do, so this is the opportunity to upgrade things without, having to deplete our funds or.
You have to be really computer savvy to use GIS. It's a nice tool also, but you have to be computer savvy.
It's clunky too.
It
Let's
is,
just be
it
blunt.
is,
It's clunky.
Plus the customer site's a lot different than what we personally use here. Ours is a lot easier to navigate than what we use in the office versus the one that open as well.
Yes, definitely true.
All right, we'll move on. The employee appreciation resolution. Make the motion.
So moved.
Say, all those in favor?
Said no.
He said yes. I was just saying.
Oh, I was gonna say, what? I didn't think so.
Meal delivery resolution, basically just an extension of it.
Yeah, so, because we're gonna use part of the CARES Act to continue the meal deliveries, I'd like just some backing to send to them that you feel that there is a continued need for it. And actually, our requests are, we're going back to now, we can only leave the form open for about 2 hours and then we have to close it down.
Well, can you use this as an opportunity? Because how you doing with hiring somebody, Brian? Last I heard there was some trouble.
Maybe.
Yeah.
You got one?
I got
one.
I got one and then you got one. We hired, does yours go to college? Like 2 college
He's gonna
kids.
go to, state group or
Oh, okay,
whenever they
yeah.
start that,
Brian and I hired 2 college girls today.
So this is gonna pay for that too, right?
Well, that's something Marty and I are gonna have to look into, whether the CARES Act will pay for, payroll out of there. We may have to use the, Northern Indiana Community Foundation grant for payroll purposes only.
Yeah.
So to be clear, so everybody understands, the meal deliveries are currently being paid for by the Northern Indiana Community Foundation and not the county.
We have just now finished, using our Okra grant. So actually,
Okra.
we have only used about $1,000 of the Northern Indiana Community Foundation. Now this past week, we moved over to CARES. So we still have our
Money from the Northern Indiana Community. Okay. So it was previously paid for by Okra.
Yes.
And then we were gonna switch to NICF, but
this.
now this came along, so we're gonna use this instead of NICF money. Perfect.
We don't think Chris is gonna be anything more there. I wouldn't be surprised.
Help too, but maybe you could help persuade her.
Yeah, I'm sure we could.
I already helped you.
Yeah, but
Well, I want to say something, Brian. I know that you had, from the get-go, you have gone out at least twice a week and sometimes more often volunteering your time to do this and deliver
that's what I'm
this.
supposed to.
Well, I think, I think that's wonderful. And I think because you don't have to do that, but I haven't done it, I have to admit. I said I would, but I haven't been called upon, but you have gone every single week.
If you wanna know the truth, I actually enjoy it. And I know we got a rule that says leave it 6 feet on the door. I come up to the old people, if they can't carry it, they say, can you please help me? I'll carry it in the house for them.
Did you put it away for him too?
No.
Well, I just think that's wonderful, and I think you deserve some special recognition for that, because I think you're probably the only one off the county that has gone every single week, several times a week.
It's enjoyable.
It is.
Oh, you do go with him?
Yeah, she does.
Yeah.
He finds himself in
You do. Well, thank you for everything that you've done, Chief.
My newest
It
recruit.
makes you feel good.
Kay Goodman.
Okay,
Yeah.
Kay does it too?
Yeah, she
That's
does.
awesome. That's awesome. That's wonderful. So, motion to approve.
All in favor?
And by the way, one thing I wanted to mention about that was open ended. I didn't set it to expire. I wouldn't want to have it expire while we weren't paying attention. So,
I guess more.
we'll come back to that if fortune smiles on us and it becomes unnecessary.
Yeah.
I don't think that'll happen too soon, sadly, but someday it will.
Yes, I do want to give an update on the Veterans Memorial to the board and the folks in the audience. And one of my committee members is here this evening, Jeff Berg, so he can add if I forget anything. I think the last I talked about, we were working on a matching grant that I applied for from the Indiana Housing and Urban Authority. I might not have that quite right. It was for $50,000, and we had to raise $50,000 in 60 days in order, the whole 50,000 in order to get the match. If we only raised 49, we would not get the match. Well, not only did we get the $50,000, but we got $66,000 and that will be matched with 50. So there's quite a few reports. I finished the last report this morning in order to have the money sent to us to the Northern Indiana Community Foundation because they're our fiduciary. And I just have been, all of our committee has been overwhelmed by the generosity of the people of our community. We've gotten a lot of money. Every craftsman to date has donated their time on the construction of this monument as well. It's just absolutely incredible. We did approve this week, last week we had a meeting, and you can see on the wall, the guy from the monument company came down with a prototype for approval by the committee. There were some corrections on some of these things, so it won't be exactly like you see it, but this is the final draft that had to be approved, and it's sent because it's going to be carved in stone. So when they say it's set in stone, it really is going to be set in stone. So we had to check for the spelling, make sure that the comments were correct. Jeff edited some of these comments, and so like that one there will be completely different. But this one here, starting here, this page with the Veterans of Foreign Wars post 748, they were our first contributor and our largest contributor, of $57,000, which was the first draw that we needed for the monument. So we have a spire that will have a bronze eagle on the top and a granite base that it will sit on, and the next 4 pages are what that granite base will be on that granite base. But the VFW bought that spire, so to speak. And so they will have their emblem on there for their contribution. The committee's name will be there, the park board's name will be there, and the commissioner's name will be there. And I can't see those other ones, what all they say. One of them is about Frank Ono, because that is also, he is our only Medal of Honor winner in Stark County. So his name appears there and what he did for how he got that award. And a little bit about those when it's his turn to talk. Then the main stone is what you see in the back there. That will be 7 foot tall at the apex. The center where it says Veterans Memorial Plaza and it has the logos of the various branches of government will be black granite. On the sides, it will be berry gray, and that's where the names will be. And then there's extensions beyond that, and a few spaces in each location, in case we have to go back and add a name that we overlooked somehow. At the bottom there is a brief description of each of the conflicts, so the folks can take a look at that. There will be 6 benches. We added the original 4. We added 2 more. Doug Allen has donated his time to do the concrete work. And he said his goal for the concrete, because we had a construction update as well last Thursday, is that he will have the concrete work completed by September 1st. He says it takes about 28 days to cure. The stone is set to arrive, that big stone, it will come in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces, I believe. That will come on a truck. We'll have a crane that Rick has arranged from one of our companies. They're donating their services to lift them up over the corner and onto the plaza when it comes. It is scheduled to arrive, all those pieces which are going to be carved are scheduled to arrive sometime between October 15th and 30th. And the guy from the monument company was here confirming that. And we also, out of his own pocket, Jeff paid for a forester, a certified forester, to come and take a look at the trees. There were 3 trees that are inside the orange fenced off area where we are doing the excavation. And when we did the excavation, there was some concern that maybe we damaged the roots too much, and we wanted an opinion from a forester. So she came out, took a look, and said, well, I don't think the roots are too damaged, but 2 of these trees are severely rotted. And one all the way down to the base, you can hear it when you tap a rubber hammer on it. And she had one of those rods that she stuck in and went all the way down. So she said, you have to do something about those, because those are going to be in danger of falling either on your monument or back on the courthouse. So there's 3 trees there. We're going to take all 3 trees out, and she gave us a rough sketch of what she suggested we should do to put new trees there and new landscaping. So Bob Alloy has taken that sketch, and he will do a landscape plan that's the sketch she gave us, to go along with this. And we have sufficient funds to buy the trees, since we were able to get so much money. So I need to tell the judge that we're going to take down a couple more trees, and but we're going to put them back. So and the last thing I guess I have to say on this is that this project, my favorite words, is on time and on budget. So, and that's always, every time we do a project, that's what I always say, you got to be on time and you got to be on budget. No going over, get it on time. Let's deliver like we promised to deliver. So I'm excited about this. It's going to be beautiful. We will have a dedication ceremony on Veterans Day. The only thing I don't have is somebody to lay the paver bricks. So I need to source somebody to lay the paver bricks. That's the one thing I don't have yet. So Jeff, would you like to briefly mention about the
I can do that. Thanks everyone for being in attendance. Even what Kathy doesn't know is that I went ahead and I changed World War I. As you read it here, it states Stark County during 1917 now consists of 12,000 people and would enroll over 500 men and women for the Great War effort. This war would kill over 116,000 Americans with a death toll over 40 million people worldwide. I went ahead and changed it. Stark County, with a population of 12,000 people during 1917, would register 878 men for the Great War effort. This world war would kill over 116,000 Americans with a death toll beyond 40 million people worldwide. And in addition, this is yours, Kathy, too.
Thank you.
I'm trying to get a copy later. Like Kathy stated, I gave the veterans of the committee 8 different sentences, actually, paragraphs if you want to go that far. And and I worked on this early. Everything's behind the scenes, you know what I'm saying? And it is sometime, believe me, what is going on here behind the scenes, as Kathy can know, is illustrated too. And so anyway, I will not have time to tell you how I came up with this, because you wouldn't believe it anyway, so I'm not going to get into that. But what is going to go on the pedestal is this plaza honors in gratitude all who serve and bestows sacred remembrance unto those offering their last full measure of devotion. So you already have a copy of that, I believe, Kathy, right? You don't have a copy of this, I don't think, Kathy. I'm honored that I took just a little bit. Me and Mark Smith, we were emailing back and forth, and not so much all the other committee members, Kathy and Brian.
But, so Brian, or Mark came back with that, okay? And what you see then, those are 2 emails. That's my PFC, oh no, that was utilized. And of course, everything on the wall, I'm honored to say, is my amendment and my edit. I'm thankful and I'm very humbled and I'm grateful. So the men on the wall here, okay, from the Civil War on, they served, there was probably about 4 or 5 different Indiana infantry regiments, okay? I know that Abram Finney came out, he was the only one from the 73rd. But anyway, I was able to go ahead with World War II and make some corrections on the Southwest tablet, existing tablet right now, and went ahead and I know like it's Florian up there, it's Florian Eugene Larimore Jr. I was able to capture even their middle names as well on that. And the thing about me is I know basically, notwithstanding how they all died during these conflicts. That's probably more so than people, you know, may want to know, but it's just a fact because I basically have looked them all up. And I even know the regions of where they're from. Korean War, real quickly. James Edward Teets is buried at Arlington Cemetery. We have another individual that's buried there as well, and that would be George Andrews House. So we have 2 on the tablets that are buried at Arlington Cemetery. Some are on tablets of the missing in Netherlands. Some were buried at sea. Some, Stephen William Smith, died on a submarine, the USS Robalo, just outside the Philippine Islands, right there by a Japanese mine. But anyway, I'll just entertain questions now very, very quickly. I know we're probably stretched for time here. And I am thankful that Gina Darnell, my good friend from Chesterton at Forrester, oh my God, she'll give you goosebumps. You're around that lady. And, you know, there's without question the trees have to come down for this. And we'll have a significant landscape project probably early next spring. So any questions for me? Anything at all? Anything at all? 31. You know, basically in the 1860s here, 1860, what you had was you had Everglades up here, okay? You had a lot of water and everything. So they basically came from North Bend Township, California Township, and some from Center Township as well. And like William McCormick here, he died, he was only 17 years old. He's buried at Crown Hill Cemetery. And yeah, he died in December of 1861. And that's where I got that last full measure of devotion, folks. Not so much is because they died in different scenarios. I mean, Andersonville Prison in Georgia there, and you know, when they were captured by the Confederacy and so forth. So that's that turnaround and all of that. You have a lot of illness here, a lot of death. Clifford Frank Garvison died of bronchitis, bronchial pneumonia. So, have I spoken enough?
Jeff and Lori Smith have done the vetting of the names. They've researched them because we didn't have any names from the Civil War, for instance, and some of those other wars. So they spent a lot of time researching, finding the names, vetting the names before that they were put onto the monument.
February of this year is when I went ahead and
months
I
and
got
months
them all.
has
So
been
that's,
spent planning that.
it's really been godsend. I'll even talk about the unseen hand because it's just an incredible, I mean, the things that even when I'm writing or anything that comes over me. And like I said, I don't even have enough time to know, for you guys to know. I'll have to write a paragraph on it. But it's crazy how that all came about. And we'll just thank Freddie Baker too. He gave us $100, didn't he, to start this all off. And then he said, I kind of like number 2. And that's you know, this plaza honors and gratitude all who serve and bestows sacred remembrance unto those offering their last full measure of devotion. So, oh, and real quick, and another thing that we added too then was Blackjack Pershing, General Pershing here. We added General of the Armies, World War I, okay? People come up there and say, well, who's he? Well, they'll know that he's General of the Armies. World War I, so. Still clear time.
It is
Yeah, it's-
moving along. It
It's incredible.
will be nice.
Unbelievable.
And we've had a lot of people working on it and a lot of financial support from the community. And I want to thank my fellow commissioners, both of whom gave a nice contribution, financial contribution towards the monument. And I appreciate that as well. So
It's great. It's gonna be great.
it'll be nice. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you. Everybody.
Marty.
I just want to thank Jeff for bringing authentic history to this. I think it's special.
Thank you.
Does anyone else? Thank you, Jeff. Does anyone else have anything?
What I would like to do is to thank the commissioners for your support, trying to get our event on August 1st. It was blocked by the health department. My husband made the phone calls. We had time constraints to get a plan together. We did put that into effect. They poo-pooed that again. So we didn't think we were gonna be able to get another plan put together that they were going to approve. But we want to thank Brian especially, and you were making a lot of phone calls. We want to thank you for that. Thank you for being available, and Kathy for coming back, at least acknowledging that we did call. We had a lot of people that were quite upset because we did not have our family in the park. It was our first one for Sandpier Parks and Recreation. We had a lot planned for it, and we relied on a lot of that for donations and money to go forward with additional events that we would like to have. We want to thank you from our heart for at least standing behind us. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Anyone else have anything? Motion adjourned. Second. All those in favor, aye.
Yeah.